Hi, I'm Jill Erickson, Head of Reference and Adult Services at the Falmouth Public Library. And I'm here today with a whole bunch of people who have written some delightful stories. And these stories are based on postcards. And the postcards are part of a collection of the Falmouth Public Library. This particular program is part of Postcards from Falmouth, which is a Falmouth Public Library local history project made possible by a Library Services Technology Act grant and administered by the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. We'd also like to thank the Falmouth Library trustees for helping us with this as well. And FCTV, who are filming us today, and Kim Dual, head of our technical services, who has been a huge help with this project. So I am delighted to introduce Jamie Cat Callan, who I first met at the Falmouth Night School many, many years ago when she was teaching story writing at that time. Jamie herself has written a great, I don't even know that I would call it a book, but she has a wonderful toolkit called The Writer's Toolbox. She has also written Parisian Charm School, Ooh La La Bonjour Happiness, French Women Don't Sleep Alone. And I am so pleased she was able to be part of this adventure in writing stories from postcards. And Jamie, would you like to say a few words before we get going?
Yes, Jill, thank you so much. And thank you to Kim, and thank you to Andrew, and thank you to these wonderful writers. Um, this was such an amazing opportunity, and I am thrilled to be back in Falmouth, at least virtually. It's my old stomping ground, and I was so honored that I got to time travel with all of these great writers and experience the old days, old Cape Cod. And for the audience, you're going to hear these amazing stories that are based on postcards, and they'll take you to the Coonamessett Inn in 1920, a boarding house in Falmouth, romance at the Falmouth Hospital, and tragedy, uh, a renewed life after World War II, the dredging of Deacon's Pond. So I hope all of you will enjoy this little journey to Old Cape Cod. And thank you so much for supporting us and for being here.
Okay, so our first story is going to be told by Bert Sheffer. It's addressed to Mrs. A.E. Nickerson of Booth Bay Harbor, Maine, and she writes, "My dear, under separate cover and sending to Mr. Nickerson a notice of the Yarmouth camp meeting. Tell him that the program seems all right, but provides no straw. Evelyn called me to see me this afternoon, all well in her family. Just now, I'm having a bit of asthma nights, much to my disgust. Hope you are well and happy. Love always, Bunny."
Am I supposed to speak right this minute? Hello, everyone. My name is Roberta, but I go by Bert Sheffer. My story is called A Special Note from Mrs. Nickerson. My dearest Hermione, as you know, I sent the notice of the Yarmouth Revival meeting to your most handsome brother-in-law. The meeting date changed. The current program in Falmouth, which has caused me much unrest, is held at the library. When I enter from the back door, I relive seeing that stolen kiss from RN and E. By the way, Evelyn called to say all is well. You and I know otherwise. I've had trouble sleeping from all that has happened 1 year ago. I actually bumped into Robert here in Falmouth. Cat got my tongue. I do not think he knows you and I suspect anything from last year's tryst. Your family is safe. You know, if Evelyn can get away to attend, do you know if Evelyn can attend this year's meeting? She might have to take the baby with her or hire a wet nurse. At least it's not such a long carriage ride from Falmouth to Yarmouth as opposed to you in Maine. Sadly, there is no one else to report on. I forgot my calling cards. I'm also sending a letter instead of a card, so the snoopy mailman can't read this. Faithfully yours, Bunny.
Okay, our next reader is June Stoddard, and her postcard was addressed to Mrs. Cora Kingsbury, Box K, Norfolk, Massachusetts. For old time's sake, M. And she had a second postcard that she looked at, which was addressed to Mr. W. Donaghy, 5 Elm Lawn, Dorchester, 2022, Mass. Thursday. Dear Mr. Donaghy, thanks for the nice visit I had at your place. I got back to camp okay before 6 o'clock. I am still drooling with envy when I think of your wonderful collection of problems in literature. Envy is not really the right word, for of course I'm glad that you have it and can enjoy it so much. Hope I find a letter from you when I get home. We were all over Martha's Vineyard yesterday. It did rain, but enjoyed it anyhow. Brownie.
From the Edge of the World by June Stoddard. Cora heard the soft tap as mail hit the Oriental runner. She became pale, ill after no word from Brownie in months. Was their engagement broken? On the red swirls of woven yarn was a postcard, the red roof of Falmouth Heights 8-sided chapel, addressed Miss Cora Kinsley, Norfolk, and just one diagonal line. For old time's sake, me. Seeing the chapel lightened her heart. He missed her. Their premarital meeting in the chapel had been months ago, the day Brownie's heart shifted its loyalty. Would Cora understand his postcard, thought Brownie? In Falmouth, he breathlessly wrote Father Donaghy, eager for a sign his feelings were reciprocated. Cora bought a train ticket, yearning for Brownie's kiss. Father Donaghy in Dorchester pondered Brownie's postcard, so full of emotion, envy, drooling eagerness. It made him blush. Donaghy knew his own forbidden longing needed tamping down. He wouldn't reply. He loved intimately poring over each bound book in his personal library with Brownie. Now that had to end. Cora's custom linen shoe touched Falmouth. Brownie waited for Donaghy's reply. Father Donaghy knelt in prayer. Dear Lord, please save me from these sinful feelings. God, save Brownie from me.
Miss Cora Braley, Normal School, Hyannis, Mass. We are started for Marblehead in the Glissando. Spent the night in the harbor at Falmouth. Expect dandy trip. FHM. Mary Power reads her story.
Thank you. The title of this piece is Baby Cakes. They speak over the whine of the engine, the roar of the wind. Florence said, I mailed the postcard to your mother. Henry asked, what was the picture? The road around the flagpole, downtown Allen Park. What did you say? We stayed at the harbor and were having a dandy time. You didn't tell her. Henry, you need to. I don't want to upset her. Better for me to upset her? Is that what you mean? She'll know it isn't right. Seemed right last night. Florence grins, moves her hand to his arm, disrupting the gear shift. The car jerks to a halt. He pulls her arm away. Don't be crude. You're a coward. You've had plenty of time. Get serious. No one is serious on vacation. Then go back and see her. Maybe she already knows. You wish. Would save you a lot of face. I thought you liked my face. I do, but not your attitude. Mom will think you trapped me. Mothers always blame daughters-in-law. Tell her about the baby coming. She can count, you know. Of course, we can't keep that a secret much longer. She twists the ring on her swollen finger, a bit too tight nowadays. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next story we have was written by Brenda Horrigan, but Jamie is going to read it for us. It's addressed to Master Herbert Higgins. She actually used two postcards. One is addressed to Master Herbert Higginbottom, 25 Fairbanks Street, Fitchburg, Massachusetts. Wednesday a.m. to leave this place for the hills of Turtleville before long on this boat. And if anybody knows where Turtleville is, we'd like to know that as well, because we weren't able to find a place on the vineyard that was Turtleville. The other postcard was addressed to Mr. Wynn, 309 Patent Office, Washington, D.C. Just to the left of this is where we bathe, JMD.
And this is The Flying Dude by Brenda Horrigan. My valet and I entered the gentleman's lounge of the subscription train to find that bombastic businessman, Avery Selden, in my armchair, regaling a captive audience with his observations of a Nancy sitting in coach class. He's shouting to be heard over the steam engine, but stops mid-phrase. And though he hasn't spied me yet, the others have, and he senses a shift in the air. For the men of the gentleman's lounge know that I am king of the train, known as the Flying Dude. I snap shut the cover of my watch, drop it back in my waistcoat pocket, and bestow a smile upon the odious Selden. Excuse me, gentlemen. I'm going to take a short stroll before settling in among your excellent company. My intention is to walk through first class and back, but recalling Selden's snickering about the Nancy, I continue on into coach. There I am greeted by gasps of recognition. After all, it is not only Boston and New York's elite who I relish a night of theater. I greet my fans kindly, warmly, nodding thanks as they gush. Then I see him. It must be him, slender and pale, not as young as I imagined from Selden's description, cannot see the eye color, but his lashes are long, dark like his hair. He crosses his legs at the knee and again at the ankle, his lower body twisted like a pretzel. He doesn't look up, but when my shadow falls across the page, he looks up. There's no light of recognition in his angelic face. I despise the bombastic Selden back in the gentleman's car, but I must admit that without him, Mr. Lionel Wynn and I would never have met.
Thank you so much, Jamie. And thank you, Brenda, for writing that wonderful story. I want more of that story. and I hope we get it at some point. Our next reader is Stephen Gleason, and his postcard is addressed to Miss Katie O'Neill, 26 Madison Avenue, Morristown, New Jersey. Hello, Katie. How is everything on 26? Things are no good here now, awful season here. If I only had you here now, you know what would happen. Take good care of the heckler. Goodbye, John.
My name is Steve Gleason, and my short story inspired by the postcard is entitled The Boarding House. Jenny Wentworth, the young widow proprietor of Falmouth's only year-round boarding house, set breakfast down before her sole boarder, Mr. John Ainsley. She sat across the table from John and said, "I'm so glad to have you here, Mr. Ainsley. It's not the money, it's the company. Falmouth is just so terribly cold and cheerless in winter. You know that better than I, working out of doors on the dredging project." "Indeed I do," John said. "Well, here goes nothing," she thought. "I've so appreciated your escorting me to church these last weeks. And since you seem to enjoy it, I was wondering, would you take me to the dance at Liberty Hall on Saturday?" John hesitated for a moment. "I'd be happy to, Jenny, but there's something you ought to know. I have a steady girl back home in New Jersey. I took this job to make some good money and perhaps propose marriage. It's been 6 months now, and I don't really know where I stand with her." "Well, why don't you write and ask her, John? I think you need to know." John sent a postcard the next morning. For the dance on Saturday evening, Jenny put on her finest dress, the one she hadn't worn since her husband died. It was a striking navy blue with pearl buttons and an ivory lace collar. She had a wonderful time at the dance, and she thought John did too. Soon after, Jenny moved John into the room across the hall from hers. She stopped charging him too. "I'll make it up easily in the season," she said. 2 weeks later, John came to Friday dinner with a grave expression on his face. "I got a letter from Katie today," he announced. "She's coming here next Thursday. She wants to talk about something." "I see," Jenny said, trying to strike a casual tone. "I'll make up another room." On Thursday afternoon, while John was at work, a knock came at the door of the boarding house. Jenny opened the door to a slender young woman holding an infant boy in her arms. "Mrs. Wentworth," said the woman. Jenny felt a catch in her throat. "Yes." "I'm so happy to meet you, Mrs. Wentworth. I'm Katie O'Neill, and this is little Johnny."
Thank you, Stephen. It's amazing. Each story is packs a punch. Each story packs a punch. Our next reader will be Kim DeSico, and her postcard was addressed to Miss Pauline Dale, 208 Woodland Avenue. And Oberlin, Ohio is crossed out on the address. And then it goes on to say Jefferson, Indiana, Rural Route 1, care of B.R. Bert. Postmarks on the card are for both Oberlin, Ohio and Falmouth, Massachusetts. And the postcard reads, "What has become of you this summer? I'm down here on the Cape for a while. It is fine down here, but the weather is horrid just now. Bill."
Thank you. The name of my story is What Has Become of You? Pauline slipped quietly from bed. In the kitchen, she set the percolator to boil, then eyed her 54-year-old college yearbook sitting on the Formica table. She'd found it yesterday while seeking her suffragist memorabilia for the Historical Society. Scents of old leather and aged paper mingled with the aroma of brewed coffee when she opened the book's cover. Her hand lingered on one of the many good wishes from bygone classmates. It read simply, "Eternally yours," signed E. Pauline's smile broadened when a postcard of Falmouth Heights, Massachusetts appeared between two pages. It was from her dear friend Bill. They'd met at Oberlin College in 1909, her freshman year, and they had spent time that summer and the next on Cape Cod. He'd been expecting her to return in 1911 and questioned her absence when he wrote, but she'd been sent to her uncle in Indiana as punishment. She and her sweetheart had been discovered locked in a passionate embrace, and Pauline's mother had raged in horror. How could you do something so sinful? The telephone's ring broke Pauline's reverie. Hello? Is Elizabeth there? One moment. Pauline placed the receiver on the counter, then padded toward the bedroom to wake her lover. The end.
Thank you so much, Kim. Our next reader will be Deb Cranen, and her postcard was addressed to Corinne Warren, 36 South Russell Street, Boston, Mass. Dear Corinne, I am having a swell time. I got your card. Thanks. How is Pete? I've met a 22-year-old 6'3" boy. He is so very tall. I'd love to stand beside him. I am true to Joe. My address is Seacoast Shores, Falmouth, Mass. Love, Fran.
Hi, I'm Deb. This is titled "The Waiting is Over." Fran knew there was no hope. It had been 4 years since Joe went missing in Normandy, and she knew he wasn't coming home. She had decided it was time to introduce Roy to Corinne, Joe's sister, with a crack of joy in the middle of a postcard. She wrote how she'd met a boy and loved standing next to his 6'3" frame. She left out how his smile began stitching together the broken pieces of her heart. Fran and Roy sat in Eli's lounge, their faces lit golden by lamplight, their backs nested against cherrywood paneling. They toasted with gin and tonics. No matter that Roy was 7 years her junior, no matter that she found herself in the exact spot Joe proposed. Roy missed the war. She was grateful for that. Men came back changed, if they ever came back at all. Fran felt it was destiny that afternoon at the Red Cross when she listed herself as next of kin by Joe's name. Roy smiled gently as she spelled her name, one letter at a time, between breaths. He kept her information and waited to become enough of a man worthy of a woman so dedicated to love. She felt it was destiny when Roy left the pink peonies and a note at her door. She had waited long enough.
Thank you, Deb. It is astonishing to me still. I've heard other versions of these, but to see what's happened in a week's time is really amazing. And again, they all started with a postcard. Our next reader was a big surprise to us, I'd have to say, because she's joining us from India, if I'm correct about that, Sonia. Sonia Ganturu is our next reader. And her postcard was addressed to Mr. Harold Bradbury of Rockland, Mass. We are having a fine time. Wish you were here with us. Sorry we lost you on the way, which is one of the best lines there. Wish you were here with us. Sorry we lost you on the way. Roger and Alice.
Hi, my name is Samya, and I'm the founder of the Jane Austen Society of India. And my story is called The Itch of Love. The full moon at Deacon's Pond was a sight to behold, illuminating everything with its soft glow. Roger sat on the shore with Alice, content that he was finally alone with her. He smirked at the thought that he beat his friend Harold to the chase by puncturing his car's tire, and so he wasn't able to accompany them to Deacon's Pond. To add salt to his friend's wounds, Roger even sent a postcard saying he was actually sorry that they lost him on the way. But Harold was no less clever. He saw Roger puncturing the tire, so he had put itching powder on the flowers that Roger planned on giving to Alice, thinking that he'd start itching as soon as he held them. But Alice unexpectedly touched the flowers first while she was carrying the picnic basket, so it was she who bore the brunt of the itching powder. Alice had sensitive skin, and the itching was just too much for her. She shouted for help. Luckily for her, a doctor was nearby, and she came running quickly with his kit and gave her anti-allergy medicine. They took her to Falmouth Hospital, where Alice stayed the night. However, when Alice woke up, she was smitten by the handsome doctor who rescued her, and feeling quite bold because of the sedative effect of the medicine, she asked him out on a date. 6 months later, Roger and Harold received a letter from the doctor. Would you two like to be the best men at my wedding to Alice? It's only fitting because your antics led me to her.
Thank you so much. And I will mention that I don't believe the Falmouth Hospital was open at that point in time because it didn't open until 1960 something. However, it's still a fabulous story. And this is one of the interesting things about writing from postcards and what you know about a town and what you might not know about a town. And because you came from all over the place to join us here, not everybody knows everything about the town of Falmouth, but I mentioned that only so the people who would be writing me emails saying, but the Falmouth Hospital didn't open until, and I only know that because somebody wrote a book about the Falmouth Hospital, a novel, in any case, which is when I first realized the hospital had not opened as early as I might have expected. So thank you so much. And our next reader, and our last reader as it happens, will be Jean Cosmos. And her postcard is addressed to Miss Esther May Stewart, 201 Fall River Avenue, Seekonk, Massachusetts. Dear Esther, I suppose you will never forgive me for not writing to you. My aunt and I are at Falmouth Heights, Cape Cod for the month of August. We are working in the Terrace Gables Hotel. I am a waitress. It is quite hard, but there will only be 2 more weeks. Please write to me, as it is rather lonely here. Love to all from your loving friend, Mary Cassie.
Thank you. My title is actually Postcards from Falmouth, and I'm J.K. Cosmos. What is it that engages my memory reading this postcard? The tone? Mary writes to Esther, I suppose that you will never forgive me for not writing. And yet, this is the writing. The writer is writing to her friend, a backwards glance at someone self-deprecating. Mary, introspective? Are her friendships less than they could be? Can I identify with what that means, end connection? Plot twist. Now letting Esther know that she's waitressing with her aunt at Coonamessett Inn. Busy summer, and I recall much fun waitressing. That's been my summer experience at the Flying Bridge in the 60s. Being down the Cape, so perfect. But no, Mary writes about working hard, counting the days and loneliness. Please write to me, as it is rather lonely here. I sigh as I think about the girl writing this postcard, wishing she had more during her summer in Falmouth. I sigh as I think about a lonely girl writing a postcard with a vulnerable pause about being down the Cape, working and lonely. I wonder why this narrative speaks to me and if it's a theme of my life or a blip being in a global pandemic. I know the girl writing, I recognize the girl writing, and I wonder if Esther writes back. Thank you.
Well, thank all of you. And given that we're all here together, I would very much, and we still have time where we can talk with one another. I think first, I'd just like to ask you all, what was it like to be right? Have you ever written a story based on a postcard previous to this experience? And what it was like, Jamie, for you to be leading this group? You muted, Jamie.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
First of all, I have to apologize about the Falmouth Hospital.
Not to worry.
I suggested that, so I didn't realize. So that was all my fault. Sorry about that.
Oh, please don't say it's your fault, Jamie. I should have done my research.
No,
I'm
no,
really-
no. I should know this.
Let us
Anyway,
remember, it is fiction. Let us
Right,
remember it's
right.
fiction. So
They
the
had to
hospital
have
could
had
have opened, way before them.
They had to have had a doctor's office or something, or a clinic or something.
something. But this, this experience has been so wonderful, and it's, I moved away from the Cape in 2015, and this just brought it all back, and that that there's that sense of history, but this the magic of Cape Cod and how it's kind of mythological. It's big in our imaginations, and this kind of brought me back to why this place is so magical. So, and it was amazing to have writers from the Cape, but also as far away as India, California, the Hudson Valley, Maine, Delaware. So I think we've done, or Jill, you have really done like a great service in terms of promoting Cape Cod to the world.
And may I say, there are tons of more postcards from which you can write stories about.